Here in Guatemala, there are 120,000 school-age children that are not registered in primary school. The reality in Guatemala is that we still have extreme poverty in so many places. There are gaps in the government system and the amount of help that is available. And there are families that simply don't see the value of education because they've never been able to have education themselves. So we do what we can to step in, but there's a lot of kids that would love to go to school and aren't able to because they have to help support their family, be it selling things in the street, working in the fields, or just going out and collecting firewood. The long-term outcome of those kids that don't get to have an education means a much harder life. Those kids are always going to have backbreaking labor where they make almost nothing because there's a huge exploitation of the uneducated population here. That might mean that they're not able to provide for their families. It can turn to drug and alcohol abuse. Um, Life is just harder when you don't have an education. One of the most important and most impactful thing that I see at Casa Guatemala is not just the short-term impact of us being able to provide the education, the nutrition, the food on a daily basis, but it's the long-term impact that we see. Since 1986, we've been here in Rio Dulce providing education for some of the isolated villages of the Mayan communities that never had access to education. And so now 30 some years later, we can see where that impact has been made. When we started, so many of the communities were coming out of a civil war. They were isolated. There was no job opportunities. People were subsistence fishermen and farmers. And if your crop failed or you didn't catch the fish that you needed for the day, your family didn't eat. So for us to have that ability to change lives on such a fundamental level, where we're not only changing the life of the child, but we're impacting the entire family and then the entire community, really makes a difference. When we're starting with families that come from isolated villages that we've never worked with before, a lot of the new kids, they're the first generation learners of their families. And for them, it means something that their parents had never had before. And those parents sacrifice so much so that their kids can be with us at Casa Guatemala. They know that in the long term, that child is going to have a much better opportunity than they ever had. And so that's why they do it. And that's why we're here to make that possible. And it wouldn't be possible without your support.